Joining a professional body has never been more important. Join thousands of other professionals just like you who are getting ahead with CIHT membership. Go to the CIHT website and discover exclusive resources and why the leaders and future leaders of the sector are members with CIHT. Welcome to CIHT Podcasts.
Hello, and welcome to Transport Talks, CIHT's podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about electric road systems and HGV decarbonisation with Andy Watson, the Central Government Advisory Director at Costain, and Justin Moss, the Head of Business Development Electrification at Siemens Mobility, and the Rail Industry Association North Chair. Thank you so much, Justin and Andy, for joining me today, making the time to chat to us. I thought I would kick off with a nice and easy question for the two of you, which is, do you think HGV decarbonisation by 2040 is something we could actually achieve?
Okay, let me have a go at this, Justin, and then you can jump in. But certainly, I think the clock is ticking, and we're very close, if not at the point where the 2040 date will almost certainly be missed. I think a couple of key factors in that. The time taken to deliver the infrastructure required for any potential technology solutions and the time for the logistics industry to change their fleet to match the new desired technology are absolutely fundamentally key in achieving the date. And before any of this can happen, a technology demonstration phase is required to help determine what is the right technology approach. And this is where things are stalling at present. DFT actually have started down the path of this path through funding of the feasibility studies that we were part of, but the rollout of the anticipated demonstrator projects hasn't happened yet. We submitted our study reports almost a year ago, and the decision making has not progressed to the point where the sight of any path to an ERS demonstrator project hitting the ground. And maybe this will get unlocked in the budget process, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, and I'll add to what Andy was saying, and effectively it's that commitment from government, because whilst this is one of the technologies that's there to electrify the motorways, it's being able to look at the full system for logistics industry. So it's not just the electric roads and batteries and hydrogen moving more freight onto rail, etc., without looking at that full system and without doing the trials to how you interoperable between the systems, then we are at danger of not reaching 2040 for the logistics industry.
Just to set the scene for a complete novice who might be listening to this, how would you describe an electric road to them?
So an electric road is effectively putting overhead line up on the slow lane of a motorway at a high enough position that HGVs can attach a pantograph to it, similar to a tram where the pantograph touches the wires and goes round. The only difference is to a tram to a lorry is because it's rubber wheels, has the live and neutral in the air rather than using the neutral as the actual track, and it has the flexibility to join it or not join it, so you can use the hybrid motor to go around it. So fundamentally it's a way of dynamically charging a truck rather than having to just stand static and charge a truck.
And do you think electric roads are the key solution to HGV decarbonisation right now that we should be looking at, or is that just one part of a wider portfolio that we should be investigating?
I think it should certainly be the core solution. It works with the other systems as well. So effectively what you're looking at is a dynamic charging system. So it enables you to run HGV vehicles up to 44 tonnes, which is the maximum size we've got on the UK roads. But by putting in the main core links, main core routes, which we've estimated around 5,500 kilometres, that makes you able to link up the ports to ports on the main trunk roads and the main motorways. It also enables you to then link into the other solutions like battery. The HGVs we're looking at are battery hybrid anyway, but it enables you to reduce the size of the battery. And so that would be very similar to the hydrogen fuel cell. So by putting up overhead lines on the slow lanes to the motorways for the main core areas, it enables you really to maximise the ability for the system. And with technology being very high level already, it means that you are able to reduce the size of those future technologies that you need.
And the size is quite a big issue, isn't it? Because if you're taking up half your lorry with the battery or power system you need to use, that's half the amount of freight you can carry.
That's right. The technology doesn't exist in a battery sense, for sure. Doesn't exist yet to power a 44-ton vehicle. The loss in payload is just way too significant. And lots of people say battery technology will get there, and maybe it will, but when is a question. The point that Justin made about ERS as a proven technology is really important. It is a proven technology on the rail network. It does work, and our studies show that we believe that we can implement it in a way that it works on the highway network too, and such that you can begin a rollout and you can get we believe we can get a battery solution, technology solution vehicle on the road carrying 44 tons.
So it will end up being quite a wide range of technologies we could have in the future. It won't just be electric roads.
Totally agree. Fundamentally, I think it's that they're looking at the whole system. There's no one silver bullet. Hydrogen as an infrastructure still needs to be built, and there's issues with regards to getting the fuel cells for the larger vehicles, as Andy says. Batteries, obviously, they're still being mined, so the more you can reduce them, how you power them, obviously you have to look at the full system of the power generated for stuff. There's not just EV vehicles for trucks, there's also cars, etc. So it's how you make that sort of intermodal solution. But also, you need to put more onto the trains as much as you can. There is still there, but the trains haven't got capacity for taking all the logistics over. So it's how you look at that full system to maximise the efficiency of how you decarbonise and put a good solution in for logistics.
And where do you think we are in terms of progress compared to mainland Europe? Because that could be a risk, couldn't it, if we don't keep up with what everyone else is doing, and then we can no longer get freight between mainland Europe and the UK?
Totally agree. There is already trial solutions being developed or already in progress. So one of the first ones was built in Frankfurt on the A5 just outside of the airport, and that's a 5 kilometre trial on both sides of the motorway. That's currently being extended, but there's another two, and I think the German government's agreed to sort of living laboratory for 400 kilometres. You have Sweden currently developing their solution and trialling it into it, and you have Belgium and France looking at it. But as an island, we can't be affording to wait for those solutions and then end up with lorries being stuck at the ports, not being able to operate. So, we want to turn that tide. We want to be first. We want to bring the skills into the UK. We want to make sure that the UK is able to actually pass some of the experience out there. So the quicker we can do a trial and look at those full systems, the better way we will have an interoperable solution across Europe.
It's a really important point, trading, incredibly important point, trading across, the channel. It simply has to continue. We'd be massively underpowered as an economy if that trade didn't exist. And, it's a big complex problem, how you develop the right technology solution. It's hard enough just thinking about it from a UK perspective. But actually, when you play that, we absolutely have to be interoperable with Europe. There needs to be a consistent solution that's implemented across the whole of Europe. It becomes doubly complex. So it's a really intriguing challenge.
And you mentioned skills there briefly, Justin. Is that something you're working on as well, making sure that we will actually be able to deliver these technologies?
Certainly. I mean, if you look at the location we've looked at on the M180, which is in between Immingham and Doncaster, you already have Skills College in Doncaster, the sort of National Rail College, and you already have electrification skills on the railway. So fundamentally, you're putting overhead line up, whether it's on the side of the motorway, whether it's on a railway. So by certainly keeping those skills, developing them further, and being someone that you can train up to deliver, it's a really important point. And I think by having skills that can work across rail and or transport sector in general, it's a real opportunity, because you probably well know about the sort of electrification of the railways, sort of like stalling with the IRP coming out. So the ability to actually have skills that could work in either sector, it really sort of maximises the opportunity.
Yeah, and almost makes it, you can argue, it'll be the easier technology to upskill for, rather than having to learn a whole new set of skills.
Yeah, I mean, and they're not just the only skills, the overhead linemen. You do see them already on tram networks, so it's not new to being on the side of the road. It might be slightly new insofar as the way it's utilised, but it is that whole project management, engineering, the skills that will be needed through it and which can be developed. So if we can get the commitment for the government, not just for the trial, but a future rollout, then that really benefits the opportunity to develop skills and put a UK PLC on the map to make sure that they can be used across the various other solutions that will be used across Europe.
So let's talk about the feasibility study. I'd really be fascinated to hear about how you went about it from the start, how it progressed, and the lessons that you've learned.
Okay, I'll pick that one up. So we had a significant number of organisations in our consortium. There were probably 4 or 5 main ones. So I worked for Costain, and I actually led the feasibility study. So it was Costain, Siemens, Cambridge University, Heriot-Watt University, Scania, and a series of smaller partners, kind of more niche partners were part of the team. We were set a fairly challenging period, so we undertook the study in 9 months. Yeah, it was it was hard work. There was an awful lot to do. We actually we wrote, in the end, we wrote two reports. The first report absolutely answered the exam question we were set by our UK, and we looked at determining the feasibility of a scaled ERS demonstration project. Its aim was to demonstrate that all road-based logistics requirements, so that's all current road-based logistics requirements and anticipated future ones, could be met by electric vehicles using a combination of electric road system and static charging technologies, and all this was to the satisfaction of the regulatory bodies and with minimum cost and environmental impact. So within that study, we did an awful lot of work around the engineering side of things. So we actually physically looked at the preferred site, which was and we'd already done a piece of work around choosing the M180 in Lincolnshire as our preferred site. There's a whole heap of modelling that was undertaken to verify that site as the right place. So we did an awful lot of engineering work into we looked at all the bridges, could we get under the bridges, that kind of thing. We looked at the environmental impact of the scheme. We started looking at developing the safety case. We clearly didn't go through the development of the whole of the safety case, nowhere near, to be honest, but we started looking at safety with an awful lot of stakeholder engagement. So there was an awful lot of work went into that, and the key recommendation that came out of it was for the implementation of a demonstrator with 2 10-kilometre sections of single direction carriageway being implemented on the M180 between the Port of Immingham and the significant logistics facilities in Doncaster. But as we talked earlier, the kind of electric road system is not just about delivering power to the motorway network. It's about actually having an array of how does the whole logistics sector work. So this was also alongside a suite of static charging facilities, one in Manchester, one in Leeds, one in Sheffield, and one logistics facility based in Doncaster. And we costed all this up, and we believe that this has a most likely cost of around £100 million and would take of the order of 12 months to implement once the safety case stroke design work is complete. So that's the first report. It was looking at a specific location in the UK where we could go and undertake a demonstrator, a kind of living lab style demonstrator project, where we could test and work out whether how the system worked. Is our cost estimate correct? Or all these kind of things. Report 2 was a little bit more strategic. It looked into the definition and rollout of a national ERS system. In that, it undertook a lot of comparator work with the other potential technologies and came to some conclusions around the attractiveness of ERS compared to these technologies. The key conclusion of that report, as Justine mentioned earlier, was that all logistics journeys can be satisfied, and it's a kind of interim conclusion, if you like, can be satisfied with a network of around 5,500 single lane kilometres of the strategic road network, and a pretty substantial array of static charging facilities, both in the public realm and at logistics facilities.
Fundamentally, is the main output for that feasibility, and Andrew's gone very neatly and clearly through the build of it, but it's to establish a living laboratory effectively. That's the sort of main opportunity. We need the trial there to be able to look at the facts that, we drive on different sides of the road. So how do you make sure that sort of like the pantographs work? We have logistics companies that work in different ways. So it's how do they sort of use them? How do you train the drivers? How do you train the blue light brigade, etc.? You have to make sure that if there's an accident on the motorway, how the police or the fire trucks or the ambulance can deal with it, etc. So it's making sure that there's that test, and it's getting people comfortable to see what's actually on the side of the road. So the reason for that M180 is very much around the fact that it's quite a short motorway, and you have some really good assets regarding the port and the logistics centres close by, so you can really perform most of the tests that you want to do.
Did your feasibility study, you mentioned it there with the blue lights, but I was wondering what other risks you might have gone over. I've imagined quite a lot of people where we were comparing an electric road to a train line, might suddenly a light bulb or warning sign go off in their head like, oh, my train's always cancelled because power lines are coming down and not working. Now it's going to be the same for lorries.
Yeah, and I can understand people thinking of that risk. There is different risks involved with putting it up on the side of the motorway and utilising it. Obviously, with regards to the fact that lorries are not the same as trains. With trains, they run on the track, so if a wire comes down, then you can't move around it. Where the fact that the lorries are hybrid vehicles, if there was a case there isn't the wire there, or it came down for whatever reason, or it was turned off for whatever reason, you just move around it. So effectively, the sort of some of the safety regimes we put in is the pantograph will go up to connect to the wires when they're there, but there is going to be stretches where they're not electrified because of the way that we're trying to design the system. You want to electrify the optimal solution to dynamically charge the batteries when you can, but that isn't the only way to charge them. You can charge them statically as well. So if a driver's in there and they put their indicator on, the pantograph comes down, they move around. So there isn't the same risk with regards to delays. Obviously, regarding safety with electrics above the roads, we are quite used to that in the UK. People may not sort of realise it, but in places like Newcastle, Manchester, Edinburgh, Birmingham, there's tram systems which have wires across the road. So it's not new. It's just a case that's used in a different way.
It's worth bearing in mind as well, as part of the study, there was an awful lot of engagement with key stakeholders. So we had a monthly surgery with National Highways. We engaged with emergency service. We engaged with vehicle recovery organisations. We spent a lot of time talking to demonstrator projects in Germany and lots of other stakeholders. And as Justin said, the clear analogy with the tram system is is woven through all those engagements that we had. However, it's worth noting that there is a significant amount of work still to do to produce a full safety case, and we need to do that and complete that with National Highways particularly and the emergency services, before we put a demonstrator on a live motorway.
And what are the remaining questions you need to answer regarding safety?
We produced a risk register, safety risk register, an initial safety risk register, but bringing wires down is one that we talked about for sure. Recovery of vehicles beneath the wires, dealing with how we accommodate the higher vehicles that exist in the UK than on mainland Europe, and coming up with a system that can not have the pantograph retracting down and going back up as much as might be driven by the height of the bridges. Those are probably some of the key ones. But there's just to repeat, there's a lot of work to do with National Highways to ensure that we get to a position where everyone is comfortable that the system is as safe as is practicable.
I think the work is more demonstrating that it is safe to do. If you think about the fact that there is already examples where it's installed, we're not starting from scratch. So it's more a case of going through the highway safety case as you would with any new product, rather than necessarily demonstrating some of the risks that have already been proved or worked out. So the system's already a very high technical readiness level. It's more a case of how we bring it into the UK network, how you install it, what's the access regime, and making people comfortable with it. But it's work to do, but something that shouldn't be something that should be delaying it.
And often in my conversations when I talk to people about electric vehicle charging in general, especially local charge points for domestic vehicles, grid capacity comes up quite a lot as an issue for installing local charge points. Is that something you've come across for installing kilometres worth of electric wires?
Yeah, and one of those stakeholders we worked with very closely that Andy pointed out was National Grid. We recognise that for all the systems, it's not just electric roads, it's EVs, it's batteries, hydrogen, all of them need power. So it's making sure that we work with the energy sector to make sure that it works. You have enough power in there. One of the reasons why we looked at M180 is obviously you're very much in the North Sea outside the Humber. You'll see a lot of wind turbines, etc. as well. So it's using that green energy in there. But we generally believe we've done the modelling by putting the power across longer stretches is actually more beneficial to the grid operator than it is to have lots of separate power. So it's linking up that full system, and it is one of the things that would need to be operated for all systems, not just the electric road.
Why is it more efficient to have those long ones? More spread out charging?
So effectively what you're doing is you're putting your own ring circuit in. So you're using less power across a longer stretch rather than putting very much, say, a bulk supply point at a service station. So you would still need that potentially for other things as well. But it's how you do it, how you sort of regulate and how you model it effectively. So you look at using as minimal power as you can to charge the sort of optimum solutions. I'm not probably technically that biased. That's something that some of our engineers would have to really sort of can go into the technical sort of side of it. But fundamentally, it enables you to look at a system across an area rather than lots of massive bulk supply points.
So it feels like the obvious next steps are to get a demonstrator project. Do you have any inklings on why it seems the government are dragging their feet with this?
Certainly conversations we've had with DfT, Government National Highways, I think the challenge we have for electric roads compared to probably the other solutions is that it's different insofar as you're putting another asset on the side of a motorway. So there's probably, you're looking over a larger stretch, whereas if you're putting a big charging point for big batteries, or if you're looking at sort of the hydrogen fuel cells, you're looking at purely the vehicles rather than putting new assets in, not looking necessarily at the infrastructure. I think this is a new opportunity, a new way of doing something. And so getting that infrastructure right, it takes time for them to really understand how they're doing it. But, we are really passionate about, we need to get it going there. We're speaking to sort of local MPs and sort of local logistics companies. And, there's a lot of people very interested in doing this because it would actually be the right thing to do.
Your question was about why are the government dragging their heels to a certain extent. I could prompt a slightly controversial answer, but I think genuinely there's conversations going on, from a safety perspective, from a national highways perspective. Having that extra asset on their network does pose them challenges as an organisation. They're not in a position to, in terms of the capabilities that they carry as an organisation, to operate and maintain such a system. So it's asking lots of questions. But the key thing for me is that the decision makers should be thinking across the three systems that, or if you like, subsystems that exist in the overall system. So we talked about the energy networks. There's a whole massive piece around, where's the energy, where's the renewable energy coming from? How do we tap into that? How does that network be enhanced? The logistics sector, how do the technologies interact with the logistics sectors and deliver minimum change in the way that they operate? But then how does the preferred technology interact with the strategic road network? And all those things have to be thought about simultaneously. And I suspect they're struggling to grapple with how you kind of pull that all together and make the right decisions at this point.
Yeah, and I think you've triggered a thought in my mind as well, and is that at risk of being controversial as well, I think government probably don't understand all three solutions that are there at the moment and are taking the easy option. Hydrogen's obviously mooted and lobbied hard across it, but there isn't the infrastructure there for that either. So, there is no one silver bullet, as we've said before. It's making sure that we have that full system. And I think this is sort of new and novel in the way it's adapted and used, and potentially they're sort of blinkering on and not trying to spend the money because they don't really understand the need for looking at all of the solutions and hoping that one silver bullet will suddenly work. But if you're looking at putting a whole new infrastructure in regardless of it, of whether it's hydrogen, battery or electric roads, and stopping diesel lorries by 2040, if you don't start looking properly at all the different solutions, we're just not going to get there.
We have a RIS3 consultation, hopefully opening up fairly soon. Is this something you think should be considered for road investment in the future?
Definitely. National highways, I think, are very naturally changing from and similar to the way that the rail industry has been shifting away from major highways improvement projects into a different space. And HGV decarbonisation has to be part of thinking going into RIS3. It's the biggest challenge in terms of reducing carbon emissions from the highways network. It's a big problem, and having demonstrated projects that then work through into implementation of the preferred technology infrastructure that's required has to be part of RIS3 and RIS4 for sure. But I do have some skepticism in my head as to whether this is really on national highways agenda at the highest level. I suppose I challenge them a little bit. I used to work for them, so I'm kind of feeling fairly comfortable about challenging them. Are they thinking strategically enough about the carbon challenge? Their biggest problem is HGV, or the biggest problem is HGV decarbonisation, and I would really question it as to whether they are really getting their arms around it and getting a grip of it, and actually, really taking action and positive action in terms of helping solve the problem.
Yeah, and I think adding to what Andy's saying there, I think they're more waiting for someone to tell them what they need to do rather than promoting it. But I think what you've got to look at as well is sort of like whether it's in RIS3 or not, it's something that as an infrastructure, decarbonising HGVs needs to be started. And if you look at the green economy, the CBI's report was something like generating £71 billion for the country. So fundamentally, is sort of like the longer you're waiting to start something, the longer you're waiting to actually bring that general value add to the country. So it just seems mad that you're not actually, well, as government or highways, whoever's sort of like the key ticket to sort of kicking it off, there isn't that commitment there, because there is not just national highways, but I'm pretty sure as infrastructure projects are financeable as well. So if you look at the infrastructure bank that was put up in Leeds, that was very much there for carbon infrastructure net zero projects. So it's looking at how that could be investable as well.
Do you think there's anything that the industry can be doing to get national highways to realise the importance of needing to act now for the 2040 deadline?
Yes, I think one of the things we're doing is we're talking to a lot of the logistics companies. So we have logistics companies wanting to make decisions on how they're going to buy their trucks in the future and wanting to know how it goes. At the moment, you have lorry manufacturers that have got different technologies. All of them want surety on what is going to be marketable. The businesses at the end of the day, they need to make money, but they need to do the right thing. So until there is clear direction of what the country's going to do, or Europe's going to do as well on top of that, there isn't ability to say, okay, we're going to buy these trucks or we're going to use this style of logistics, etc. So everyone's sort of waiting for that start button, really.
Well, I always like to end on, or at least hope to end on, what we've got right so far, and so it's not all doom and gloom. So do you have some positives, some things that we've really got right so far in this journey?
Okay, so I think the government are going down the right path. So it was a real positive that they actually found funding to enable feasibility studies to be undertaken. And I think some of the key points, and I think these are important to stress, that came out of the ERS feasibility study that we undertook is, we touched on it, but it's worth repeating. We believe that this is technically feasible, and we're confident that there are no hazards associated with a proposed demonstrator that can't be mitigated in the right way. And as I said before, the comparison to a tram system is something that is worth listeners holding in their heads. Also, I think this is an important question that we answered in terms of the M180. Our proposed demonstrator, we believe, can be implemented without a development consent order. We believe that there is no significant environmental impact, which is a big hurdle to jump in terms of making this happen quickly. We have demonstrated through the extensive modelling that we've done that all HGV logistics journeys could be satisfied with a network of around 5,500 kilometres and static chargers in the public realm and logistics centre. And the next point I make is absolutely fundamentally important. The total cost of ownership of vehicles, so that's the purchase of vehicles and their operation for 6 years, when comparing big battery and hydrogen, ERS would definitely be the lowest cost. So has the lowest TCO. That's hugely important for logistics operators. We also think ERS delivers the lowest overall reduction in carbon. If you think about the premise that we gave before around the reduction in battery sizes, the embedded carbon in a battery is fairly significant. So, even in a big battery sense, ERS, the scaling down of batteries brings significant advantage in terms of reduction in carbon. And finally, ERS brings the lowest energy demand, which again is a hugely important point. The supply of electricity is direct to the vehicles. There are no storage losses, and particularly in the case of hydrogen, these losses are huge. So hydrogen is 30% less efficient than ERS. So if you power the ERS off from, basically it means you need 3 times as many wind turbines or nuclear power stations to power a hydrogen solution than you would ERS. So those are really, for me, really important key headlines that our study, we believe our study has delivered and confirmed, and why ERS needs to be taken forward as a viable solution.
Yeah, and I think other positives that have come out of the study as well, not just the study, but around electric roads, is it is being, whilst we're frustrated potentially with some of the delays in sort of getting to the point of starting the trial, it is still on the map. It is still being discussed at the very high levels. And also we have a demonstrator already on a live motorway. Whilst it's in Germany, this is technically ready now. It's actually being utilised by logistics companies. We have logistics companies going to visit and see it. We have DFT coming out. We have National Highways, and it's been such a success that it's actually being extended. So, it's ready now and it works. It's just a case of getting that first mast up on the ground in the UK.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, no, thanks, Isabel.
Joining a professional body has never been more important. Join thousands of other professionals just like you who are getting ahead with CIHT membership. Go to the CIHT website and discover exclusive resources and why the leaders and future leaders of the sector are members with CIHT.